Yeah, what we have here is beam as a structural element. Then importance of beams and how it affects structures. So in construction we know beams are very very important because you need to link your structures maybe after constructing your columns. So you need to link your columns together, column to column. You're going to be needing your beam. So beams are very very important and very very popular on site. So but we don't really understand what this beam is and how the importance. We only used to say beams, beams, beams on site, but we actually need to understand the importance of this beam. So that is why we are taking a look at this topic today, beam as a structural element and the importance of beams and how it affects our structures. So what is the beam? So we need to even understand what a beam is. So a beam is a horizontal structural element. That is a horizontal structural element. The column is a vertical structural element. So a beam is a horizontal structural element designed to resist load perpendicular to its length by bending and shear. So it helps to actually resist loads that are perpendicular to its length. So it also transfers load from slabs. Helps to transfer loads. That means after you've done your decking that people used to call your slab. So all the load coming from the slab, the live load, the dead load coming from the slab is being transferred to the beams. All right. So it helps to transfer the loads from the slab, then even your wall or other elements to the column or support. So beams are essential in buildings, bridges and other structures to ensure stability and performance. So beams are very very essential because they help to transfer all these loads to your support, even on your bridges too, from your the surface of the bridge where your vehicles will be passing to your bridge deck, right? So from your bridge deck down to your column. So it is your beam that tends to transfer all those loads, the vehicular movement, the load from trucks and all those things down to your bridge deck, then down to your column. So beams are very very essential then to ensure stability and performance. So we'll be looking at key reasons why we need a beam on a structure. What are the reasons why a beam is actually needed in a structure? So the first point is support and transfer loads. So beams are essential for support and also for load transfer because it is very very important for all these loads to be transferred to the support, right? So and it is the beam that helps to do all this load transfer. Beam carry loads from slabs, from walls or other members and transfer them safely to the column or support. So it is the function of a beam to carry all the loads, the live load, the dead loads, right? The wall loads and transfer them safely to the support. So that is why even during the design, your structural drawing and your designs, you need to actually consider your live load, your dead load, your wall load, you understand, in your beam design because they are very very important. Even your factor of safety must be considered. The second point is provides structural strength, right? So it helps to provide structural strength to the building. So beam increases the overall strength and rigidity of a structure by resisting bending and shear forces. So it helps to increase the overall strength of a structure, right? And by also helping to resist bending and the influence of shear forces. So these are still the functions of a beam. Then we have ensures stability and safety. Yeah, because you can't just have your columns hanging, so you actually need that connectivity which tends to ensure stability of the structure and the safety. So beams help maintain the stability of the structure by keeping loads within safe limits. So they help to keep the loads within a safe limit. Then we have span opening efficiently. So beam allow large open space by spanning between supports without the need for extra wall. So it actually helps to open spaces by spanning between supports. So it spanning between two supports and between two columns, all right, without the need for extra wall. So in between, all right. So span opening efficiently. So it helps to keep your span opening, efficiently. And the next point is improves structural durability. And structural durability is what actually gives structural integrity, because if the durability is not there, then the integrity of the structure has been compromised. So it is very, very important for you to do proper design beam, which enhances the durability and long-term performance of the structure. So for a well-detailed structural design of your beam, then which helps to do a proper construction, because from your design is what translates into your construction process, right? From your design, you get to know the number of reinforcements you're going to use, the number of stirrups you're going to use, the spacing of your reinforcement, the spacing of your stirrups, the concrete cover, if there's going to be lapping, the lap length, and all of that. So it improves the structural durability of the structure. So we'll take a look at the uses of beams. Which areas are beams used, and how do we actually make use of these beams in such an area? So the first one we have is support floor and roof slabs. So for support floors, we are going to be introducing beams on your support areas, right, to interconnect your columns to columns. Then we also require beams as roof slabs, because sometimes if you are constructing and you get to the rooftop, there's what we call roof beam, right? And this roof beam acts as support for your roof, right? So you tend to design your roof beam so that your roof is going to be lapping, going to be sitting on your roof beam. All right. Then transfer loads to columns or wall. So beams actually is useful to transfer loads to your columns or loads to your wall. Then provide stability in building. It actually helps to provide that stability, desired stability in buildings. Then used in bridges and overpass. So for your bridges and overpass, flyovers, the likes of them, you actually required a beam. All right. Then support lintel over openings. So maybe between your doors, your door to door, your windows to windows. So you actually need that beam, which is called lintel. You understand, for the openings. Then used in industrial and commercial structures. Yeah, for your industrial and commercial structures, you also need your beams. There are also steel beams too. It's not just concrete beams. There are steel beams that are used for steel structures and form parts of frames in structural systems. So in a structural system, a system, that is a frame structure, part of the frame structure itself is a beam, because a beam is a structural member, so which is also a component of your frame structure. So we have a typical reinforced concrete beam component. So we'll take a look at the components that are obtainable in a beam. So we have the top reinforcement, which is very, very important. Then we have the stirrups, which always comes with spacing. Then we have the main reinforcement bar, which is the bottom reinforcement. Then we have the concrete cover, which is very, very important. Then we now have the support, that is where the beam is actually laying upon. So it is actually from the beam to the support. So the support is always hinged with the beam. You understand? So all the loads from the slab, from the walls, right, is transferred to the beam, then the beam tends to transfer all those loads to the support, and the support is usually a column, and even the column too tends to transfer the loads to the foundation. That is why when you're constructing, you start from the foundation, you make sure you prepare the foundation to be okay, so that all the loads coming from the slab, the beam, will be transferred to the column. So the column should have the strength to be able to withstand all these loads coming.